Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to it. Give this video a like.
Check out our podcast also below in the description.
So one thing we're always trying to figure out is how much does Kyle Shanahan like Jimmy Garoppolo? Every little, every little nugget, everything he says is like a reevaluation. And Grant Cohn wrote about this. We've watched the Kyle Shanahan press conference on YouTube, and we watched what he said. Now he was asked about Jimmy based on something Robert Saleh said the day before, that Jimmy seemed like he was reading things quicker, understanding everything a little faster, right?
I
That's
think
the basic
more
gist of it.
decisive was the words he
More
used.
decisive. Kyle said this: the more you're in a system, the more you go against the same defense over and over, the more it becomes second nature. So you expect that from Jimmy. You expect that from him. You expect that from a lot of guys who are going through camp and going against the same players and coverages for a couple years here. I think the whole team's pretty sharp going against one another. We've had enough of that. We're ready for that to end. So the quicker you can go against some other people, we'll see how that's panned out. I thought Jimmy's played very well. I thought he also had some better looks, which helps. Makes it less hard on him. Grant pointed out that of the 5 touchdowns Jimmy threw in a red zone period Sunday, 4 of them were against the second string defense. So that's what Kyle was referring to in terms of seeing better looks, which is a coach's way of saying, all me. How about those play calls, though?
And everyone's like, "Yeah, he's a great play
Yeah,
caller."
he's right.
I, I had two takeaways when he said it. My first original one is I think he's hesitant, and I think all good coaches do this. Like Mahomes proved to Andy immediately, right? MVP, he could handle it. They were completely confident on, like, if they sang his praises, it didn't impact him. And I'm not saying that it does for most quarterbacks. I think most quarterbacks pretty high level guy, but you're still human. And I wonder if there's an element of like I'm not promoting, like, this guy knows he's our starting quarterback. We already pay him. Like I don't need to tell him every day how good he comes from Belichick. But I'm going to make it really hard on him, and just like that's the way I'm gonna, like, a little almost Parcellsian. Now I Parcells did like Parcells love Phil Simms? I would say no. I mean, part of that is you're not completely in love with the player. I think he likes Jimmy, and I think he knows he can win with Jimmy. But I think it's pretty clear the more you watch him that I don't think he thinks he's fucking Joe Montana reinvented. Like it's pretty clear. Now, I also think there's an element of is he lying? Right? Part of it is we're going up against these guys every day. He's been in the system now for 4 years. For example, the I think one of the questions, right, was, we probably make too big a deal of this. Last year was the 5 picks in a game. This year was 5 straight touchdowns. And he's like, at the end of the day, and I've always believed this, having been to a ton of these practices and when I worked in the league, was your players, it's just like anything. Like, you and I have been doing shows together for a long time. We got a pretty good idea of everything that's going on, when someone else is going to talk, what your thoughts are on this, putting a show together. But if you just threw us on, Fox TV tomorrow, it'd be a little uncomfortable, right? Or just a different platform that we weren't used to. It takes some getting used to. In football, as a player, you get used to your opponent. And the opponent you see the most is the guy you see in practice. So if you're Richard Sherman, you get used to Debo. If you're Trent Williams, you get used to Nick Bosa. And Jimmy Garoppolo, you get used to, I don't know, Robert Saleh's defense.
It's hard to be
And
surprised.
yeah, there's a huge element of you face other teams, even in preseason games, you just look across, you're like, I don't know who that guy is, right?
Right.
And it's the unique part of football that in basketball we know exactly, right? Like, these game sevens are going on, the game two, like, who's going to shoot the ball for the Celtics? I don't know, Jason Tatum or Kemba Walker. Who's getting the most of the looks for the Lakers? Like, you know what they're going to do. In football, even like week one with Brady, it's like, who's he going to throw to? I don't know. If you told me Mike Evans had 20 targets, it sounds crazy, but it's not inconceivable. If you told me Gronk had 7, like, but you could tell me he had 0. Like, you just don't know, because in football, there's so much, and vice versa. Like, are they going to blitz? Are they not going to blitz? Are they going to do a different kind of? Are they going to disguise something? And I think Kyle probably goes. I still have a lot to learn from Jimmy. We haven't been together that long. Like, does he know that on game day?
Yeah. I mean, part of that answer is, uh, yeah, I like him, but I'm not going to lie about. I'm not going to say that because he had 5 touchdowns in the red zone on Sunday, all of a sudden he's reached some new level of of his
Yeah,
performance.
he reminded me of Kyle's
He's
like,
not
he reminded me of Drew Brees right there.
right. Well, yeah, exactly. One thing Kyle is not is Harbaugh, right? Harbaugh would tell any of Jim Harbaugh, any of Jim Harbaugh's guys are his favorite guys.
I think John has some elements of that too. John's
A
pretty
lot of
supportive.
coaches, and there's something to it. But maybe we should just go, okay, maybe Jimmy's now Kyle didn't structure Jimmy's contract, but maybe and I think Kyle gives us evidence, right? Like the end of the first half of the Super Bowl. I supported the way Kyle played it. I understood why he played it that way. Part of that is a reflection maybe of what he thinks of Jimmy. He likes Jimmy, but his quarterback has zero guaranteed salary in 2021 right now, John. That's his quarterback. So
you know when he talks about offensive players, but specifically his quarterback, who he reminds me of? Defensive coaches. Like, if you just threw on a Mike Zimmer or a Vic Fangio press conference over this training camp, do you think, beside like Von Miller, do you think Vic Fangio is like, Drew Lock, he's got a little Peyton Manning feel to him, or Jerry Jeudy? It's like, oh, I see Marvin Harrison 2.0. No fucking chance.
That is a great point, because you know what? You know how he talks about defensive coaches? The way defensive coaches talk about their best offensive player. Like, you know what it is? Here's what it is. I'll tell you what it is. It is, I cannot control what that guy does. I need that guy. Defensive coaches, they can't scheme up anything for offense. So when we watched, now I tweeted because I said, is there anybody Kyle loves more than Fred Warner? And a bunch of people replied like, well, he did say that he would wear Jimmy Ward's jersey on the sideline if he could. So maybe he loves Jimmy. But watch what he said about, he lights up about Fred Warner. Because part of it, you're watching the Kyle talk about Jimmy, you're like, well, maybe he's not complimenting anybody. And then Fred Warner comes up, and he's just, you'd think Fred Warner was, honestly, I watched that clip and thought, is Fred Warner about to become like a top 3 NFL linebacker? Is that what Kyle thinks of him? Because that's what it feels like, right?
Yeah.
Like, does Kyle think Fred Warner's just an all-pro? That's what it feels like Kyle thinks. That
well, in fairness, like Fred Warner's got a chance to become one.
No, you're right. He's already really good. He's not like some under-the-radar guy.
But he didn't hesitate to go, he proves every year. He's everything we want. Like, he did not do the same thing of, like, Jimmy's working hard. He didn't mention any of that shit.
He's like, well, everybody's developing. He didn't say that about, like, if the same answer had been given for Fred Warner, it'd be like, yeah, well, Fred, everyone's getting good looks. Robert's doing a good job of getting everybody in the right position.
But I even think the good looks of, like, I bet he looks at it, like, not even the play call, that Trent Taylor knows exactly where the little area is going to be in the zone, right? We go up against this defense all the time. Dwelly knows exactly where to cheat it on this. And that's where, on a normal week, you remember the thing that went viral last year with Kyle on, I don't think it was the playoff game, right? It was the first game against the Packers, where he goes to the referee and he goes, you watch this, they're going to hold Kittle, he's going to break it out. And then it happened. Yeah. See, I told you. There's an element on games, like, I can control a lot, but there's still a lot of unknown in games. I think Kyle goes in practice like, these guys that have been on these teams several years, we don't have any coaching turnover. We're running the same scheme on the other side. They know, and the player turnover isn't really there. So you see the same guys. That's where I think, like, you're right. I think he goes reverse psychology, where he truly likes those guys. And I give Kyle a lot of credit. He does care a lot about defensive players. He really does. And that's, I think sometimes on offense, you don't.
Yeah, no. Defensive
I think for a long
ignored.
period of time, people think Gruden didn't give a shit. I think sometimes Sean Payton went through that stretch, like, he doesn't even care. When I was around Andy Reid, his favorite players were like Brian Dawkins, Trent Cole. And now it's like, when he talks about Patrick Mahomes, he always brings up the Honey Badger. Like, they're our leaders.
I know what Mike Leach's defensive players think.
Well, yeah, but I don't think. I think Lincoln Riley made an extra effort to really kind of, like, they put a lot of thought behind that.
Who'd he hire?
The dude from Ohio State, from Mike Leach's guy. Yeah. I think Kyle puts a lot of cognitive thought in, like, that's a good point. I didn't think about it like that, but I also think it does reflect, if Drew Brees was on his team, I don't think he'd talk like that, right?
Right.
Yeah,
exactly. I think there are times
he likes him as much as contract, is what you told me earlier, and that might be right.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean he doesn't think he can be better. It doesn't mean it. We've talked about this a million times. We are Jimmy Garoppolo believers, but we also think there's stuff to be proven. And it's hard to put that in a sentence, especially if you're the coach. There's no reason for him to say, well, Jimmy's still got a lot to prove to me. That doesn't benefit you to say that. I mean, Kyle's not talking about who's going to win.
Isn't it also easy to be like, because I think most people would be like, listen, We saw the first couple years when you didn't have a quarterback. You got it pretty good now. Why are you overthinking it? And Kyle go, yeah, but I'm on another 6-year contract. I make $10 million a year. Ask anyone in the league or a fan of the league. Most of them are going to call me a top 2 or 3, not just potentially coach, but definitely a play caller. I got pretty big confidence that if this fucking thing doesn't work, I can find another one.
What does every coach say when someone's like, one thing one thing we were watching today at practice is there a big competition at left tackle? What does every coach say?
No.
Well, I don't mean the Niners specifically. I just mean position X. Is there a competition at running back? They say there's every
it's competition. Yeah.
Every position is a competition, right? But no one actually, for the most part, when it comes to quarterbacks, you don't really act that way. Maybe that's Kyle's attitude.
And I think the reality
is, what if
is
Kyle was like, if CJ's better, CJ's better.
But I think if even when they say that, for example, that if you went to a high-level college team or a pro team, it's not even true. Like probably 7 of 11 starters are solidified. But I think there's an element of because Jimmy is solidified, right? That's what is unique. He is the starting quarterback, and there's no question about it. But in the coach's mind, he's not. Is he your franchise quarterback? And his contract would tell you Kyle's got options every year. So we can think what we want. I'm a Jimmy guy. But clearly his coach is not just – you watch Sean Payton talk about – and Drew Brees is a bad example. But, Tom Coughlin forever with Eli. There was a level at that quarterback position with offensive and Tom with –
It's a pretty unique
Bill.
Dynamic though, right? Because you've got he is your franchise quarterback. But it's just there's not a lot of you're a Super Bowl contender, but he's not under contract. I mean, he is under contract.
Wouldn't you say Gruden gives Carr a lot more praise than Kyle gives Jimmy? Fake or not? I mean, he says it.
It's a good maybe. But that just
now,
might be more
granted, I've always been a believer though, and I still am to this day. Not just in sports, but in any walk of life. Like I don't judge people necessarily, even coaches on their words. I judge them by their actions. They did. I mean, they could have gotten Tom Brady this offseason, and they just kept Jimmy.
Yeah, but that's what Kyle would say. It's like, hey guys, this is nuance. Like, I'm not trying to get rid of Jimmy, but don't ask me if after 6 practices against the defense he's seen,
he's become a red zone savant.
Yeah. Again, no, we're gonna have. I got some questions. We got to take a step here. We got to get better. I got 8 receivers on IR or something, so I'm gonna need him to make a bunch of plays.
Yeah. Especially early.
Yeah, Kittle's still getting maintenance days. Here's the other thing. Let's just make sure, because the other thing he said was Trent Williams, just a vet day off Monday, no biggie. Tuesday was a day off. So let's just make sure, John, that Wednesday Trent Williams is out there, okay?
I'll keep an eye on it.
Keep an eye on it.